Hey guys, Heather here from Tye-Dyed Iguana, and today we're going to talk about why it's such a bad idea for you to release your pet reptiles and or amphibians into the wild. This is a problem that has become widespread in the reptile hobby and it has caused many problems all around the world. Now, why would a person release their pet reptile or amphibian into the wild? Well, it usually happens because the person can no longer care for them, whether the animal gets too big or their care is too complicated, or they might even just get tired of the animal. So they think setting it free in the wild is the best thing that they can do for them. However, in most cases, this is usually cruel to the animal. Now, this animal has been depending on you for its whole life, basically giving it special care and food and feeding it, making sure it has plenty of food to eat every day. Now, if you release it into the wild, depending on what kind of animal it is, it may not even know how to take care of itself. It might not know how to go catch food out in the wild. It may not know what to go eat. So, yeah, basically it's out of luck. And then you gotta think about what type of environment you're releasing it in. For example, releasing a Euromastix, like our Molly Euromastix here named Chewy, into our area of Illinois would actually be a death sentence for them. These guys are a desert animal that requires super high temperatures, and it is not nearly hot enough here in our part of Illinois for these guys to actually thrive and survive. And not to mention our very cold winters. These guys would definitely not survive our cold weather at all. And the same thing goes for other species like sulcata tauruses, bearded dragons, ball pythons, and other species that come from much warmer areas of the world. Now, what about releasing them in an area that they could survive and thrive in? Now, while it won't be cruel to the animal necessarily, it will spell disaster for the local ecosystem that you release it in. That's right, it's time to talk about invasive species. You'll find a whole bunch of different places around the world right now that have established populations of invasive reptiles and amphibians, mostly because of people releasing their pets into the wild. Even in our area, we've had customers tell us about how they found animals like ball pythons out and about, and one person even found a veiled chameleon out in the wild one time, and it was even during the colder months. So it was a good thing they found it and brought it to us because it would have died otherwise. In our area, releasing species that could survive in the wild and establish populations, like a species of king snake, could impact the populations of native species. In this example, a population of invasive king snakes would have fun eating our native snakes, like gar snakes, rat snakes, and other native species to our area. Now, there are some invasive species that might not cause as much trouble as others would in a given area. A great example being the gold dust day geckos and giant day gecko populations established in Hawaii. They don't seem to be affecting the ecosystem very much, but they could be competing with native species of geckos in that area for food, so there is some impact on the environment. In Florida, veiled chameleons have established a breeding population there too, but their impact on the environment isn't as detrimental as the big three we're going to talk about next. Which leads us to the three examples of invasive pet reptile species in the state of Florida that have actually hurt the environment there. So much so that there's actually a ban being put into place on the breeding and importation of these guys in that state. So first up is the big one, the Burmese Python, like our little guy Hercules here. Except he's an albino, he's not a normal one. Now, there are many stories on how these guys established such a large population in Florida, but mostly it happened because ones that were found in captivity either were released, whether it was by owners who had pets that got too big and they decided to release them, or they ended up escaping from their owners one way or another. So yeah, basically it came from people either releasing or them escaping. Now, where these guys are mostly found is in the Everglades in Florida. The Everglades is basically a paradise for these guys. They thrive there. It is like the perfect environment for them. And these guys have been decimating the populations of local animal species there. They'll eat any kind of small animal they can find, rodents, rabbits, they've even eaten, I think they can eat like small alligators too. So basically they'll try to eat anything they can find, and they've been really harmful on the local ecosystem there. And for the people that live there, they're a nuisance because they will also go after small pets and everything. So yeah, these guys are pretty ornery down there in Florida. So they definitely don't like them being down there. So definitely invasive and causing problems. Alright, so here we're joined by the second invasive species to Florida that we're going to talk about today, the green iguana. Now the green iguana, as far as impacts on the ecosystem goes, these guys, they compete with other species for eating plants, fruits, and vegetables, as well as eating plants that are important to other species that might even be endangered. For example, these guys, they like to eat the host plant of the endangered Miami blue butterfly. So without those plants, those endangered species can't thrive, and that'll just lead them to being even more endangered. And because of their diet of eating vegetables and fruits and greens, these guys will actually cause damage to residential and commercial landscape vegetation, and they're often considered nuisances by property owners. And green iguanas can even cause damage to infrastructure by digging burrows that erode and collapse sidewalks, foundations, seawalls, berms, and canal banks. So not only are they bad news for animals, they're also bad news for humans too. Last but not least, we've got a newer species that's invasive to Florida, and it's also spreading to surrounding states like Georgia, the Argentine Tegu. Now this little guy doesn't look like much now, but he is going to get much bigger. These guys, they eat just about anything plant or animal, so you can definitely see why they would impact their ecosystem as far as that goes. They will definitely eat small animals like small rodents and everything. So if you've got any endangered species of rodents down there in Florida, these guys will definitely have a negative impact on them for sure. And they're also worried because these guys, they love to eat eggs, and any endangered species down there that is egg laying is not going to have a good time with these guys in the area. That'll definitely impact their population numbers, and it could possibly make them even more endangered. So yeah, that's why these guys are such bad news for Florida. Ain't so? Yes. And of course, just like the Burmese python and the green iguana, these guys were definitely introduced to those states because of people releasing pets, and or them escaping, of course. But tegus do get pretty big, and people don't realize that all the time when they start out with a small baby like this, and they just feel like they can't take care of it anymore because it's so big, and then they think, oh, it'll do good and be free in the wild. And yeah, they'll do good, but they won't be good for the environment in which you release them. So yeah, they're definitely another pretty annoying invasive species. Now, what all three of these different species of reptiles have in common is that their populations were most likely introduced by people releasing their pets, usually because that they get too big or they can't take care of them anymore. So it just goes to show you that releasing your pets to the wild when you can't take care of them is not a good idea at all. Either because of the animal's inability to survive in the area that you release it to, or that the animal actually become detrimental to the local ecosystem of the place you release it to. Either way, it's bad for both you and the animal. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot from it, and we'll see you guys next time.